Morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching this. It's your boy Mr. Malachi, and I'll be taking you through this video on multiplying and dividing fractions. So let's jump right into it. So we're given this fraction that you see there, and obviously they are dividing because we see a division sign between them, and we are supposed to simplify that fraction. So what do? What we need to do is we need to factorize the top there. And what type of factorization can I apply? I can apply a highest common factorization. So I need to take out a highest common factor. And my highest common factor is x. Then I open my brackets, I ask x times what would give me an x squared? It has to be another x. X times what would give me a negative 4x? It has to be a negative 4. Then I have my top factorized. The bottom, I cannot factorize that guy. So I leave it like this. And what I need to do now is, because there's multiplication happening between those guys, I can cancel the x and the x at the bottom. Then my final answer will be x minus 4. All right, so that's how you do this question. One thing I do need to highlight is that you really need to be good with your factorization to be able to do this part or this section of mathematics, right? So let's do number 2. Some I will explain the types of factorization, some I'll just assume you should know, and I'll go very quickly through them. This exponent there is a 2. So again, we're given this fraction that we need to simplify. So what I notice is that at the top, I can again take out a highest common factor. And that highest common factor is actually a 2y squared. I open my bracket, 2y squared will times with the 2x squared with the z squared to give me this first term there, and 2y squared will multiply with the positive 1 to give me a 2y squared, the second term there. And all of this is being divided by a 2y squared, and mysteriously the 2y squared and the 2y squared there cancel, and so my final answer is 2x squared z squared plus a positive 1. And that's how you factorize that guy, or that's how you simplify that type of fraction. All right, we'll do 10 questions on these, so let's keep going. Let's do the third one. What if we need to factorize the top and the bottom? Let's take an example that looks like that. So in the first two, we just needed to factorize the top. But what if something looks like this? So this, again, we can factorize the top. This is a difference of 2 squares. We can factorize the bottom. That's a highest common factor. So if you factorize that, difference of 2 squares, you open those 2 brackets, you square root the first term, you'll get a 2x, and that 2x goes in the first position of both brackets. You square root the second term, you'll get a 1. That 1 goes into the second position of both brackets. 1 is positive and 1 is negative. Again, you need to be really good with those type of factorizations. Then at the bottom, I notice I can take out a 2x, and what's left in the bracket, it's a 2x that is adding a 1, right? Then at this point, I notice that there's a bracket that is the same. This 2x plus 1 with this 2x plus 1 is the same. So it cancels at the top and it cancels at the bottom. And what I'm left with at the top is that guy. And what I'm left with at the bottom is that guy. So you're sitting there at home and you're watching this video and you're like, Mr. Malachi, can I cancel these 2x's here? No, you cannot. You cannot cancel those because there's a subtraction happening at the top between the 2x and the minus and the 1. So you cannot cancel. The only time you can cancel is if they are multiplying, like this case. So these brackets were multiplying, the 2x and the bracket were multiplying at the bottom, and because of that multiplication, I can cancel. But you cannot cancel if there's addition and subtraction. I hope that makes sense, and so this would be my final answer. All right, let's go into number 4. So we've done where we need to factorize the top and we need to factorize the bottom. Let's do another example that looks like that. So we're given this, and we have x squared plus x, this guy here. And again, at the top, the type of factorization I need to apply there is a trinomial. The bottom is a highest common factor. So please go revise on those. I do have a video that is doing all the types of factorization that you need to do. So maybe go watch that video first before you can proceed with this video. All right, so a trinomial, I open my 2 brackets. Factors of 1 that add to give me a 2. It's going to be a positive 1 and another positive 1. Then at the bottom, I take out my x as the common factor. I get an x plus 1. And at this point, I notice the bracket that can cancel. I'm going to cancel these 2 brackets. Remember, only one bracket at the top cancels with only one bracket at the bottom. So what am I left with? I'm left with an x plus a 1 that is divided by an x. And this is my final answer. Very easy. All right. So we've looked at ones where we need to factorize the top and where we need to factorize the bottom. Let's look at a very complicated one. Let's kind of wrap up this segment of the video at looking at a very complicated one. Alright, so we have this question, and again, we're asked to simplify it. So what do I notice at the top? The top, I can apply a common bracket factorization. So this is common bracket. At the bottom, there's no factorization that I can apply, but what I can do is this bracket is squared, so I'm gonna write it twice. Just going to write that bracket twice. So let me do my common bracket. Common bracket, you write the common bracket first, which is this guy here. So since that's my common bracket, I write it first. Then I open brackets. Then I ask, if it's gone there, what was left multiplying it? It's the x squared. If it's gone there, what was left multiplying it? It's the negative 2x. And if it's gone there, it was a positive 1 that was outside of that bracket. So that's how my common bracket would look. And at the bottom, I just have this guy. And write it in black because nothing really happened to it. X plus 3 with a x minus 1 with another x minus 1. Remember what I said? X minus 1 squared, I'm just going to write that bracket twice. So that's what I did down here. Right? Hope you guys are following. But what you will notice again is that this guy is a trinomial. So we can factorize that guy further. I'm going to keep the first bracket. Right? The x plus 3. And then I'm going to do my trinomial. My trinomial breaks up into 2 groups. Factors of 1 that add to give me a negative 2 is an x minus 1 and an x minus 1. So that's my factorization of the trinomial up there. Then at the bottom, I have this guy. I have an x minus 1. I have an x minus 1. And if you're watching this at home, you would be screaming right now to say, sir, but these brackets all cancel. Yes, they do. So the x minus 1's bracket cancels, the x plus 3 bracket cancels, and so what am I left with? I'm left with the positive 1. Remember guys, if you divide a 2 with a 2, you don't get a 0. It's not equal to a 0, but instead it's equal to a 1. So the same idea here, if you divide an x with an x, you get a 1. If you divide an x minus 1 with an x minus 1, you still get a positive 1. It's the same thing that is dividing itself, then you just get a 1. All right, I hope that makes sense. Now let's move on to the next part of this video. So if you would have noticed the first, I think those were 6 questions. The first 6 questions that we looked at, 5 questions that we looked at, it was just a division happening. There was stuff at the top, there was stuff at the bottom that we needed to divide and simplify. This next part of the lesson is when you have different fractions in that expression. So let's take number 6 and you will see how this guy looks. So we have a 2a squared with a 3b squared being divided by a 2a squared with a 6 being divided by a 6 over a b squared. So now what you will notice is that now we have different fractions in our expression there. And again, we need to simplify this guy. So one rule you need to be really familiar with, and I think you learned this rule grade 8, grade 9, somewhere there, where it says a over b, if this guy is being divided by a c over d, then what I can do is I'll keep the first fraction, but what I'll do is I'll change the division into a multiplication and I will switch the second fraction. I will tip the second fraction or swap. Tip, swap, switch, whatever word you want to use there. But the point is the second fraction will look like this. And at this point you can times the a and the d to get AD, and you can times the b and the c to get BC. So that's how you go about doing division. Division we can never divide, but what we can do is we can tip and we can times. So let's apply it for this question. Alright, so I'm going to keep the first fraction and then I'm going to times and I'm going to tip the second fraction. So what do I mean by tip? You just change, you flip it like that. So that's what I'm going to do. The 6 is now going to be at the top. The 2a squared is now going to be at the bottom. And again, I see a division happening there. So again, I change it into a times and I tip the third fraction now. So what I'll get is a b squared over a 6. All right, then at this point, I can cancel the stuff that are the same. So I notice a b squared is the same as the b squared. Those cancel. The 2a squared with the 2a squared, those cancel. The 6 with the 6, those cancel. And what you're left with, you're just left with the 1 over 3. So at the top, you're left with the 1. At the bottom, you're left with the 3. And it's this 3 that I took there. So that's your final answer. Let's do another one that looks like this. Question 7. What if we have a 7x squared over a 2y to the 3 times a 3z over a 5y divided by a 14xz with a 10y squared. Alright, same idea. I'm going to keep the first fraction. I'm going to keep the second fraction because there's a times between them. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to your times and I'm going to flip the third fraction. So I get a 10y squared divided by a 14xz. Then at this point, I can start cancelling. So what I notice is that we have a y squared there, but we have a y3 there. So this leaves me with 1y there, right? We have this y that's going to eventually multiply with that y, but we'll get there. What else do I see? We have a z up here, we have a z down there, those cancel. We have a 2 down there with a 5 down there, so 2 times 5 would give me a 10. That's cancelling with this 10 that's at the top. Then lastly, or second last, we have a 7 there that's divided with the 14, giving me a 2. And we have an x squared there that's cancelling with this x, giving me an x at the top. So I hope you guys followed that, and what I'm left with is this x with this 3 at the top, so it's a 3x at the top, and at the bottom I'm left with this 2, this y, and this y, so it's a 2y squared at the bottom. And there we go. That is our final answer. Alright, let's look at this next question. So we have in front of us x squared minus 16 divided by x plus 4, or 4 plus x, sorry, divided by this next fraction there. Again, we're going to keep the first guy. Actually, let me do the factorization first. So let's factorize the top. In this case, we can factorize, so let's do a difference of 2 squares there. And let's do an HCF there. Let me do the factorization first. So I will get these 2 brackets there, x minus 4 and then x plus 4 for the first difference of 2 squares at the top, x, a 4 plus an x. This is being divided by, if I take out a common factor of 4 there, I have an x minus a 4, and at the bottom I have an x minus a 4. So I have this. Again, we tip and times. So I keep this fraction. You always keep the first one, guys. You tip and times the second one. So I times now and I tip the second one. And there we go. And at this point, you can start cancelling brackets that are the same. X minus 4, x minus 4. This 4 plus x is the same as this x plus 4. It's the same thing. It's like having a 2 plus a 3 is the same thing as a 3 plus a 2. They both give you 5. So it's the same thing there. What is different is if you have a 2 minus a 3, this is not the same as a 3 minus a 2. This one would give you a positive 1. But this one would give you a minus 1. So these are not the same. But if they're adding, they are the same. So that's something you would have learned in grade 8. Alright, cool. So I've cancelled the x plus 4 and the x plus 4. So what am I left with? I'm left with this guy and I'm left with this guy. So I'm left with an x minus a 4 that is divided by a 4. And again, we cannot cancel these 4's there. So you would leave this as your final answer. Alright, let's do this next one. So we're given these 3 fractions there and we just need to simplify them. So yeah, let's get right into it. Let's factorize first. This is a difference of 2 squares. This is HCF. This is also HCF. So let's do all the factorization first. Difference of 2 squares gives me these 2 brackets. Again, guys, please go watch the factorization video for you to follow what's happening here. If I take out a common factor of 2, I'm left with an x squared plus a 4. And if I take out a common factor of 2x, I'm left with the 2 minus an x squared. No, minus an x. Sorry. Yeah. And then at the bottom, I'm left with just an x. So I factorized everything that I could there. I'm going to tip in times now. So I'm going to keep this guy. And I'm going to times, then I'm going to tip the second fraction. X squared plus 4 at the bottom. I'm going to times, and I'm going to tip the third fraction. And that's what I have now, right? So this is all nice. We can start canceling. But what we notice is actually nothing cancels here. There's nothing that is the same that we can cancel with. But we notice this bracket here. This bracket here looks similar to this bracket here, but they're not quite the same. They're similar, but they are not the same. So what I can do is I will use this rule of called switch. This rule called switch rule. And what switcheroo says, it says if I have a bracket and it says x minus y, and there's an a outside, or there's a number outside, or even if there's no number outside, if it just looks like this, then I can change the sign outside. It's now a negative, and I can swap those guys inside. So that's a mathematical thing that you need to know. It's a skill that you need to know and apply every single now and then. So if you switch it, how does it look like? It looks like a y minus an x. And now, since you have a negative outside, you can easily just, cancel common brackets. So this is a rule that you need to know and remember. It's a very nice rule because it comes up in common bracket. You apply it in common bracket. You apply it here in fractions as well. So yeah, it's a rule that you need to know and be very ready to apply every now and then to help you simplify these fractions. All right, I'll just take it away for now, but I hope you copied it down. All right, so I'm going to keep everything the same. And then I'm going to do my switcheroo for the last guy. And this is a sum of a cube, so I can't really factorize it. It's a sum of two cubes, I can't really factorize it. And this is a negative 2x. I'm going to change the sign outside. It's a negative now, and it's an x minus 2. So I'm literally swapping the position. I'm not changing the sign there. The sign is still negative in between them. I am just swapping their positions. All right, at this point, this bracket will cancel with this bracket. Right? We have an x canceling with this x. We have this x canceling with this x. This 2 here with this negative 2 are not canceling, but instead they're going to multiply. So let's see what we get. We'll end up getting an x plus a 2 at the top. At the bottom we'll have a 2 that is multiplying a negative 2, which is a negative 4, with that bracket that does not cancel with anything. And this here would therefore be our final answer. Alright, at this point, I think you should get the idea. You should be able to see these tricks, these things that we can apply. You learned 2 rules in this video. You learned what tip and times is, and you've learned what switcheroo is. So every other thing you should have been able to do already, which is the factorization part, right? Let's do one last question and then we're gonna call it. So this one, I wanna make it a little bit too hard. Let's make, this is question number 10. 5a minus 5ab, a 2b squared plus a b minus a 3 times a 6 plus 4b, a 5b squared plus a 10b plus a 5 divided by a 2a plus a 4ab, 2b squared plus a 3b plus a 1. Alright, that's our final question. So what I want to do is I want to actually factorize those separately on the side, and then I'll just put them in there, especially these ones here. These are called those intermediate trinomials. So I would want to do it on the side. This is a complex trinomial. This is a complex tri, and this is an intermediate tri. Intermediate trinomial. Alright, again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the trinomial video because I've made these videos for you guys. So please go watch it. Again, this is also another complex tri. So let's do the first one separately. 2b squared plus b minus 3. You take this 2, you times it across. You get a b squared plus b minus 6. You factorize that. You get a b factors of negative 6 that add to give you a 3, a positive 1, sorry, is a positive 3 and a minus 2. So you divide by the same 2 that you cancelled, you times across, and so this guy ends up being a 2b plus 3 and a b minus 1. How did I get the 2b plus 3? I took this 2 that couldn't simplify and I times it across to the b. So again guys, I'm doing this very quickly, and that is because I've already taught this, so please go back to the initial videos on trinomials and go watch those. So the second one, the intermediate one, is a 5b squared plus 10b plus 5. I take out a common factor of 5. B squared plus 2b plus 1. I get a 5 outside, and then I do my trinomial, b plus 1 and a b plus 1. So there we go. Then the last complex trinomial, which is a 2b squared plus 3b plus 1. You take the 2, you times it across, and you'll get a b squared plus 3b plus 2. Factors of 2 that add to give me a 3. It's a positive 2. It's a positive 1. But I need to come back and divide with that same 2. So the first bracket gives me a b plus 1. The second bracket gives me a 2b plus 1. And we get these brackets here. So I'm going to take these brackets and I'm going to put them back into my fraction. Okay, cool. How am I going to do this? Maybe let me just put them back this side. So this fraction now looks like I'm going to also factorize this HCF. I'm going to also factorize this HCF there as well. And I'm also going to do this HCF. Alright, so let's do it down here. So if I do the HCF at the top, I will get a, take out a 5, you'll get a, actually you take out a 5a, you'll get a 1 minus a b, right? And then my trinomial at the bottom, this is the one I did at the top. The first one that I did was a 2b plus a 3, a b minus a 1. 2b plus a 3, a b minus a 1. This was being times by, if I do this HCF here, I take out a common factor of 2, and I will get a 3 plus a 2b. Then my second intermediate trinomial that was at the denominator was a 5b plus 1 and a b plus 1. And this is all being divided by the HCF at the top. If I take out a 2a here, as you see it, what it will look like is it's going to be a 1 plus 2b. Then at the bottom here, I have a b plus 1 with the 2b plus a 1. All right, cool. Everything is factorized. I just need to tip and times now. Keep everything the same. All right, that's how it looks like after the tip and times. All right, cool. Now we just need to cancel the common brackets. All right, let's take a deep breath. What is the same there? I notice this guy is the same as this guy. Remember, we've talked about that. 2b plus a 3 will be the same as a 3 plus a 2b. Then what else do I notice? I notice that this guy is the same as that guy. The b plus 1 with the b plus 1. What else? All right, cool. I don't think we have anything else. Here, what we're going to do is we're going to apply switcheroo on this guy. Switcheroo. And why? It's because we are trying to get this bracket to be a b minus a 1. Because we have a b minus a 1 there at the bottom. Here in the second fraction, everything kind of cancelled. The only thing that is left is the 2 over 5 with the b plus 1. And in the last fraction, we left with the 1 over a 2a. So at this point, I can cancel these. And now my final answer would be a negative 10a at the top. Actually, the 2's can cancel too. Let's do the 2's and the 5's. So the 2 and the 2 would cancel. The 5 and the 5 would cancel. The a and the a would cancel. So I'm left with the negative 1 at the top, actually. Then at the bottom, I'm left with the b plus a 1. And this is your final answer. All right. So that's it from my side, but what I would like to leave you with is a procedure on how do you go about solving these type of questions. All right, that's your procedure right there. So let me read it out to you. It says you need to factorize the numerator and the denominator of all the fractions that you have there. So the key word there is factorize. So please revise your factorization. Make sure you know every single type of factorization and that you're very good at it. Then step number 2 is you might need to tip in times if you see divisions happening between fractions. And I even showed you what tip in time looks like. And then the last thing is you then need to cancel your common brackets, terms, variables, or numbers. So maybe under this, let me include one last part that you learned in this video, which is this whole idea of switcheroo. So this one looks like if there's a and there's a y, or rather an x minus a y, then what you could do is you could change the sign of the a and then you swap the guys inside. So it's a y minus an x, and that's how switcheroo works. So if the sign outside was a negative, then you'd change that sign to be a positive, and you'd still swap the guys inside of the bracket. So that's it from my side, guys. It's your boy, Mr. Malaji. Please like, subscribe if you like the content, and I will see you on the next video. Thank you.